Here. That's the thumbnail. No, look, I get it. I know there's a primitive instinct that made you click on it. I did it for that reason. I know what kind of man you are. It's no shame, brother. You're here for it, and I did it so you get here. So we help each other. That's a symbiotic relationship, not a parasitic relationship, Parasite Eve. I couldn't come up with a clever pun, fuck it, I'm just gonna say the name. Alright, so I had Parasite Eve sitting in my shelf for like 8 months before I finally played it. You know, I was busy playing other games and other stuff at the time, so I was excited to get into it finally. I actually had no idea what I was getting myself into. At the time I had just bought the PS1 on the TV, so I figured I'd buy some games. So I went to Google and searched up cool Chungus PS1 games, and under the survival horror category, Parasite Eve showed up. And I did absolutely zero research about the game, because going blind and naked into things I've never tried before sounds like a good time to me. So I searched up the game on eBay and bought it for like $70 for sub. And it was not what I expected at all. I mean, it said survival horror, but it could be an MMO hentai PS1 game for all I know. But it really wasn't a survival horror at all. And I think the reason it was heavily labeled as one is because it's based on a book, which also has a movie. And yeah, I did read the whole book and I watched the movie for this video. Hey guys, welcome to some live gameplay and commentary on Parasite Eve the book. The book is a surreal sci-fi horror story that a lot of times felt like it dove deep into a more psychological aspect than a monster aspect. And the movie is a romance drama. All I will say for now is that I wouldn't really call it horror, but apparently people really like both of these two pieces of media, which I can see why. But I guess because of how successful these were as horror media, in order to sell more copies, they labeled the game as survival horror, which looking back now I feel like that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, the game has basically no survival / resource management, and there aren't really any horror elements apart from, oh my god, a monster. In fact, it has more in common with Final Fantasy than it does Resident Evil, and I only ever even played the first 4 Final Fantasies. Yeah, I played them quite recently, but something about the game felt really familiar, especially the menus. And as it turns out, this game is using the Final Fantasy VII engine, which now makes a lot of sense. Oh yeah, and the game is made by Square Enix, which yeah, that's literally why. And before we get started on the game, yes, I will bring up the movie and the book throughout the video. But don't worry, I won't shove it all up in your face. In fact, I'll only bring it up a few times. I'll leave the book and the movie for when I'm done with the game. So yeah, with that being said, let's go over the entire game. Because as it turns out, it's not a very long game. But this video might be, so sorry about that if it takes too long or something. I'm working on pacing. The game starts with Aya, who is a cop. And she's on a date to watch / listen to an opera. Do people actually go to those? And then a very impressive and graphic scene begins where the entire audience is set on fire. And I gotta say, it's a really good looking cinematic, especially on the PS1. I will say though that these have to be one of the worst human models I've ever seen on a PS1 cinematic. They look super uncanny, but overall this scene is really cool. It really gives me some No Russian vibes.
Wait, stop! Me first!
For some unknown reason, Aya and her date survive, but then she tells her date to just get the fuck out of here. And then she goes on to try and 1v1 the floating, set on fire people entity. And this serves as the tutorial for the combat. If I had to describe it, it's basically Undertale. It's turn-based combat, except you actually get to move around. You have a stamina bar or a AT bar, and it's basically, yeah, it's stamina. Once it's full, you get to attack. When attacking, you have this green field that basically is your range. Anything in it is able to get hit, and anything not in it is a miss. And yeah, it's very simple, but it's kind of fun. The enemies have the same system as you, kind of. It's not really shown, but I assume they do. They also get to move around and attack according to an invisible stamina bar they have. If you're close to them, they melee. If you're far, they do projectile attacks. It never gets too bullet helly, but it's pretty hard to dodge at times. All you get to do is run, or basically just walk out the way from incoming attacks. You don't get to roll or jump or anything. It's not a flawless system, and I will go over it some more later, mainly the PE bar and some stuff. But yes, I do indeed feel joyous when I play this. So occasionally you will be stopped during fights for dialogue or whatever, and that just adds to the cinematic feel of it all. Anyways, when you go talk to the floating horror, Aya is all like, "Freeze! It's the NYPD! Like, yeah, I'm sure the diabolical entity that can summon the flames of hell itself understands authority in a social construct. Then the actress goes, "You're the only one that seems fine. You should be awakening soon." What about him? He survived too. Will he also awaken or whatever? I demand to know this NPC's backstory. Anyways, during the fight, she tries something on Aya, and then nothing happens. Oh, just as I thought, you're the chosen one. We get a flashback when the fight is over. Well, more like a flash screenshot, cause all it is a hospital bed. Anyway, she leaves, and then we gotta go after her. That's when Aya stumbles across a little girl, and she recognizes her. A really cool enemy introduction cutscene plays. It really has like a body horror vibe, kind of like The Thing. Super cool visuals. The fact you can see how everything changes to make it look the way the enemy does is really cool. Anyways, the enemy variety is actually pretty big and they all have really cool designs, but not all of them get to the cool cutscenes. So sometimes it's kind of hard to tell what the enemy is. But overall, the mobs are really cool. And the way you get into a fight is also really cool. The way it works is that there are no random enemies walking around the map. It's a random encounter based system. You walk around and occasionally you'll be stopped in place and your character will move to a specific point in the screen you are in. And then the enemies will spawn and the fight will begin. That's just a really cool way of starting up a fight. Instead of just black screen cut, you actually have the character get in position. It just seems very unnecessary, but it's really cinematic. And yeah, sometimes you do have encounters that are set. So once you cross or step on a certain part of the map, a specific encounter will play. This is an important detail that saved me like 8 to 10 hours of grinding. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Anyways, after walking around, Aya finds a breathing roasted ass beef jerky on the floor. And says, "You're still alive." Hold on, let me call the paramedics. I get it, okay? It's Loki trying to tell us, "Oh my god, Aya, you're so nice and caring, I like you as a character now." The beef jerky brings up Melissa, the actress who set people on fire. Then he dies. There's also a clown, and Aya tells him to get out, and the clown is like, "Oh shit, people are dying? Couldn't be me. See ya." Yeah, that was the only time we see that clown. By the way, damn! Yeah, that was the only time we see the clown, and I found that very interesting because it said a lot about the game. They actually modeled a whole ass clown just for like a minute of screen time. You can tell the budget was through the roof for this game. That's not the only time they have one-off characters. They really just went all out trying to make this game cinematic. Just add a clown for the sake of immersion. But yeah, he died and then we find a parrot screaming. Hot. Help. Help. Get it? Environmental storytelling. Parrots imitate what they hear. And the last thing it heard was the screams of pain from this beef jerky guy. Damn, this game has it all, and it's only the first like 10 minutes. It has cinematics, parrots, clowns, booba. What else can you ever ask for? We find Melissa's diary, and it's about how she started to feel sick and she's taking meds now, so they don't remove her from starting on the show. We find out it's currently Christmas Eve. Parasite Eve? Christmas Eve? No, there's actually like lore to that. Anyways, Melissa feels hot all the time and she takes meds for that. The actress that was gonna replace her dies in her apartment after it burns down. We find Melissa sitting down playing a piano with a really soothing tune, and it's just a really underappreciated set piece. This is like the only time we see her do anything that isn't just outright doing something that keeps the plot moving and makes her look evil. And it's probably because she's still Melissa. It has a huge contrast to what Eve actually is. Melissa then dies and she finally becomes Eve. Then another cutscene plays and look at it. It's majestic. We fight her and she says that Aya still needs time until her mitochondria releases. By the way, I'm gonna say mitochondria a lot in this video, so if I ever say it wrong, it's because I'm repeating the shit out of it. So I'm sorry about that. Then we get that flashback again with a doctor this time. Then she goes through the floor and boom! Sewer level jump scare. Eve makes a monster gator thing and we fight it and then it's over. Aya climbs out the sewer and then there are reporters outside asking her questions. Then Cleveland comes and punches the lights out of the reporter. Yeah, that's Daniel. And he's a cop too. He's so cool. So I don't know why he would punch people. That's a bad cop. Daniel is like a parental figure to Aya. They are cup buddies. Daniel then questions her why she would even go to the opera. And yeah, I agree with him, what the hell, Aya? Then she says it was instinct, and that was day 1. The game is split into days, there's 6 of them, but some, like chapters 1 and 2 are like 30 minutes long, maybe less. Then others are like hours long. Aya spawns in the office the next day and explains what she saw. Everybody thinks she's lying, but then Daniel's all like, oh yeah, I believe you. I believe her. She was the only witness. Just pure fucking slurp slurp no choke. And by the way, I'll take my chance now and to say how incredible this music is. Well, actually, you've been listening to it for a while now. But still, it's so good. There's something so fruitiger aero about it. Seriously, all I see when I hear this music is a bunch of Windows backgrounds. It only fits really good with the weird horror elements that are going on in the game. It's just really pleasant music that doesn't really take you out of the game. It can be really eerie as well when you're just walking around and exploring areas. And then there's also that music that plays when that really cool ass anime intro plays when you boot up the game. I wish more games had cool ass anime intros like that. I mean, the only thing I can think of that has some sort of intro like this is fucking Origins on Black Ops 2. But seriously, all the songs are really good. We get a mod permit from Baker, and then we go down oh look, it's Joe. We go down to the office and they explain us the mod permit system. Okay, so we might as well get the RPG out of the way. Whenever you win a fight or get through a day, you get XP. And when you get enough, you level up. Yup, very complex system, I know. However, I find that the XP system is kinda not really one. It just kinda feels too linear to be one. By that I mean is that by a certain point of the game, you will always have a certain amount of XP, so you'll always be a certain level. So unless you're actually avoiding encounters because you can run away from them, you will probably most likely be the same level at that same specific part of the game every time you replay the game. So it always kind of feels like leveling up isn't really a thing. All it does is increase some of your stats, which you can't even choose which ones. It does that automatically for you. I mean, so might as well not even mention it. It's almost like it's there to satisfy the monkey brain from a player, like, number go up, me happy. Again, it's linear, but that's not a bad thing. Kinda. This actually kinda aligns with my biggest issue with the game, but I'll mention it later. Leveling up also gives you some points that yes, you can actually spend on 3 specific things. On inventory space, action points, and weapon upgrades and armor. Inventory space is just, well, that. Action points make it so the stamina fills faster, which means you get your turn more often. And weapons and armors each have 3 stats that you can also increase. And spending points in them increases whatever you choose, except there's a huge thing that the game doesn't really tell you about, which I'll save for later. But yeah, that's about all the leveling up does. It's linear, and I know I made it sound a bit more complex by saying you can actually spend points on something, but it kinda isn't. But later we find out it's all a lie. Now there is the mod permit system, which this part is probably the most interesting system, and I kinda find myself really liking it. It basically turned the whole game into a collectathon. All weapons and armor have what would be basically a perk. For example, a pistol has a 2-shot perk, meaning it shoots twice per attack. But that's not really a perk, is it? It's just the pistol's properties. But let's just call them perks. What the game does is that, let's say you have a grenade launcher which shoots once per attack. Makes sense, right? It's a grenade launcher, it's a powerful gun. Well, you can find items called tools and super tools. Tools allow you to remove a perk from a gun, so you could remove 2 shots perk from the pistol and give it to the grenade launcher. Now it shoots twice per attack. What's the trade-off? The trade-off is that it basically halves the damage of the grenade launcher, and because you shoot twice, it leaves you more time stuck in the shooting animation, so it's kind of actually balanced. I say kinda because it's definitely just a terrible trade-off. But there's one more downside. When you use a tool to remove a perk, it also destroys the weapon or armor completely. So there's 2 things to have in mind. 1, sometimes guns and armor have more than 1 perk, so maybe you want both but you can only have 1. And 2, the tool can also be used to remove the added extra bonus points to the stats and add them to whatever gun or armor you want. So if you have a perk you really want on a gun, but also have a lot of skill points spent on that gun, then you have to decide between one of those. That's unless you have the super tool that allows you to remove one thing without destroying the item. But super tools are really rare, so you probably won't do that often. Oh, and the mod permit and cards just give you one extra space for one more perk in whatever armor or weapon you spend it on. So that's it, that's the RPG system of the game. Sorry, I just really had to get it off because it's gonna make a lot of sense later on in the video. Really, the most important aspect is just the tool system and the perks, since you had to be careful with destroying and removing stuff. It really just turns into you juggling points and perks into weapons and armor. So you would spend all your points into a single gun that you won't really use, and basically carry it as like a bank for skill points. And for the perks, you would basically just gather any weapon or armor that has a perk you like and just put it in the storage box. Then you find the one gun you will make an absolute beast and spend everything on it. Destroy and sacrifice every other gun and point and add it to that one singular gun or armor. Problem is, you have to commit, because if you change your mind later, you only get to take one thing from it, unless you have a super tool or something. So it's a really interesting and simple system. Because of the perk system, it feels like you can make a shit ton of weird guns and combinations. At one point, I had an ice grenade launcher that shoots like 8 times, which was actually horseshit. That system itself makes it so there's some sort of replayability to the game. If you think I went over a lot and it sounded very complex, well, the game straight up slaps your screen with a whole ass instruction manual for most of these mechanics. It just goes, yeah, we could explain this in a much more efficient way, but here, just read the whole manual, fuck it. Anyways, back to the story. We meet Wayne and he's trying to risk Aya by going, "Hey there, good looking." Cut the shit out. Then Torres shows up and flames his ass for that whack ass attempt at risking his co-worker. Torres is a really interesting character, at least from the perspective of trying to find out why they low-key gave him an arc. Here we find out that he has a thing for guns. He feels that guns are the troublemakers. He says, as long as cops rely on guns, criminals will too. Which is absolutely idiotic, but he's old, and I've learned that old people have some interesting perspectives, which makes me want to do evil stuff to them. But I can only imagine how younglings in the future will look at me when I tell them that I indeed don't believe that AI will ever replace humans, as my consciousness is being extracted and placed inside a mater fleshlight. But anyways, regardless of his statement, he allows us a gun. Then we have a conference for the press on what happened, and of course, Aya has to lie to the press and be like, oh, it was nothing. The boss tells Aya to absolutely do not let people know it was a mystical entity that caused all of it. So Aya goes, it was aliens! Back at the office, Baker has a major crash out moment. Aya, I thought I told you not to say anything. I'm telling the truth, sir. Yeah, that's not the point. You weren't supposed to do that shit. That's not the point! Yeah, I agree. Sir, she was only what, Daniel? She was only what? How can you defend that shit, Nathaniel? She was trying to what? Fuck it up? Cause she also did that, Daniel. Also, why is that guy bare ass naked? Anyways, we find out the museum has some info on the Maito-chan, so we go there. And look at this world map, it's fucking beautiful. I really like it. Oh yeah, the game takes place in New York, so I don't like it anymore. It looks exactly like it in real life. Oh shit, yeah, this game came out in 1988. Surprisingly, I didn't even notice them until like my 4th playthrough. I'm just so used to games now having them. Anyways, the world map is cool because it really does let you go anywhere at any point of the game. It doesn't ever really close off sections, so let's say you spend a whole day in the hospital. You can go back to that hospital at any time and basically go through the whole thing again. There really isn't a reason to do that though, but you can. That's good, I guess. Seriously, I find the world map to be really impressive. Anyways, here's one of the longest cutscenes in the game. It's like 5 to 7 minutes of pure information about what the mitochondria is. We meet with this scientist named Dr. Clamps. And Daniel ain't taking shit from him. He can feel it in his deed that something is wrong. His veins are pulsating. And I mean, yeah, the scientist is not even trying hard to hide the fact that he's evil. I wouldn't be surprised if he pulled a light Yagami and just started laughing out of nowhere. Anyways, he tells us that the mitochondria are basically separate organisms. You mean like a parasite? Haha. That's like the game.
Aha, Jonathan, you are banging my
He says that a single mitochondria can discharge a lot of electricity, this amount, and as well for heat. And a cell has hundreds of mitochondria, so a lot of energy can be produced if they really wanted to. He also tells us that mitochondria can mutate 10 times faster than normal cells and evolve 10 times faster. And also tells us about this one woman in Africa who became known as Mitochondria Eve. She's the root of all humans. He like, I might act like y'all not here now. And then he just goes back to, I don't know, watching scat furry porn. After all that, we go back to the police station only to find out that Eve was spotted in Central Park. And oh no, that's where Daniel's kids is. With his ex-wife. They're holding a concert in there or some shit. I forget. I forgot. So now Daniel, of course, just needs to show up to get his kid and ex-wife back. Even though that won't undivorce them. Oh yeah, Daniel has a kid. and we met him earlier. His run animation is so obnoxious, holy shit, I hate it. It looks like he has to put most of his body in front to counterweight his fat fucking head. And yeah, he got one of those "that doesn't have time for me" storylines. I also hate his fit. Why is it all red? What the fuck? Anyway, so now we go up to the first area of the game. That's a fire-ass drift. The way the scene is shot and everything, the police lights and all. See, that's one thing I like about this game. Aya actually feels like a cop. She actually goes around and does cop shit, not whatever the fuck Leon is doing. But seriously, it's really cool that we get to actually go through a police station as some sort of hub area. The characters are actually likable and some even have some depth to them, even if shallow. You can go back and forth between buildings in the city. We get cutscenes in the police car as they drive. And I don't know, it just really feels like you're just doing cop stuff. You're investigating before you do anything, and it's really cool. And I need to find better words for cool because holy shit, everything is really cool about this game. And as of right now, it's been like a good 15 minutes without combat at all. And probably more if you actually explore it a bit. We get to the entrance of Central Park and oh no, Daniel can't go in. That's another thing that's really sugoi desu. Daniel gets set on fire if he gets too close because he is a normal person, but not Aya because she is the chosen one. It's all because of Eve having like a fire aura around her, making it so every area in the game is basically always just you and Eve. The fact that there's actually in-game lore reasons as to why 1, Aya isn't affected by the fire barrier aura thing, and 2, why there's no people around, which would otherwise make the game run terribly and ruin the atmosphere. It's really smart of them. Anyways, Central Park is the biggest area of the game, which also includes the zoo. Here you fight snakes, crows, and I think monkeys. And to be honest, it was a really confusing area to explore. Well, see, this game has this one issue that is very annoying when it comes up in fixed camera games. By the way, this game has some beautiful ass fixed cameras. Seriously, the pre-rendered backgrounds and all look amazing. Some of the best I've ever seen. Maybe not in detail, but definitely in scale and just angles. Like hell yeah, I love moving around a single pixel on my screen. I'm a huge fan of pre-rendered backgrounds, and it's a shame we don't really ever get those anymore. I think they're actually a product of their time. Like yeah, they can still make them, but there is something about seeing them in a CRTV that gives it a whole different vibe. And the buzzing of a CRTV makes me nostalgic for an era I wasn't even old enough to fully be conscious for. And I will probably lose consciousness in a bit here because my CRTVs emit straight fucking cancer into my skull. Anyways, yeah, the pre-rendered backgrounds and fixed cameras do come with one issue. Sometimes it's hard to tell what's a prompt for another area. I'm talking like a door or a pathway that will trigger the next room or area. And that happened a few times throughout the game. I just couldn't find where to go, only to realize the trigger for a different area was in a tiny corner of an area that I explored like 30 times. And other times the camera and pre-rendered backgrounds were just disorienting. Sometimes the pre-rendered backgrounds are a bit too blurry and low res to understand what I'm looking at. I don't know if it's a gap or a wall, or even if I came from that direction at all. Again, this only happened to me like a few times, like 3 or 2. But every time it did happen, it just had me walking around aimlessly. Back in Central Park, our goal is to basically get to wherever Eve is. And that's usually the goal for every area of the game. We enter the zoo and we have to find a way through it, and all that means is that we need a single key. So we have to stop and explore the area. Throughout the world we find chests that gives us ammo, heals, and different items and weapons. Ammo is kinda weird though because it almost makes you think at first, oh, this is why it's survival horror. We have ammo and stuff to worry about, but not really. There's also antidotes for multiple debuffs you sometimes get in fights, but they're also useless. They just heavily clog up the inventory space. No fight really lasts long enough for any of the debuffs to be game ending or something, so they're more of a nuisance than anything. The game has designated chests that have specific guns and armor, which is actually useful so you know where to get a specific gun. So that's all you can get from these chests, including junk, but we will go over that way later. You can also loot and interact with specific world objects like lockers and stuff. The problem is that it isn't very clear when you can or cannot interact with something. That's kinda how they hide secrets. For example, here you can move this table for some reason, and next is this grenade launcher. Why would they keep a grenade launcher at a zoo? I don't know, because this is probably pre-Harambe. Anyways, once you make it out the zoo, you walk a long way to a concert thing, and in there you find Eve just floating there. We see a bunch of people get melted away and form a blob monster thing. And I gotta bring up another problem, this time with the atmosphere of the game. I completely forgot this game does not take place in a post-apocalyptic New York City. It's just too empty and quiet. At least have a single fence zombie in the street or something. Oh wait, it takes place in New York, not San Francisco.
This is San Francisco for you. or even the birds are fucked up on fentanyl.
Seriously, this game is quiet and lonely in many ways. First of all, as you can tell from all the things that have happened so far, this game tries hard to be cinematic, and overall it does a fantastic job at it. This game had to have a massive budget, if you couldn't tell from the left and right CGI cutscenes. Again, usually PS1 games reserve that for intros and endings, and here we get them like every 20 minutes. So many CGI cutscenes is probably the reason why this is a 2-disc game. And from the effort to tell this story, it's worth it. So it's really weird to me that they chose to not have voice acting. Honestly, it really bothers me, because it would have been gold. And I don't know, it just seems like a huge missed opportunity. Even if the voice acting would have been shit, it still would at least be funny and memorable. And it would fill in the damn silence. The lack of voice acting makes the CGI cutscenes even more uncanny. The first cutscene is really cool because everyone is running around, there's falling corpses on fire and everything. There's actual human presence here. But then in the Central Park cutscene, everyone is just sitting around and waiting to be melted. Not a single emotion or noise coming from them. They're no different from my spinning hot pocket in the microwave. They already don't even look human, and not giving them a voice or movement makes me forget they're humans at all. Like seriously, the first time I played this, I completely missed the fact that there was even people here. Even from just entering this concert area, it's completely quiet. There's no movement or anything. And of course, it's the limitations of the PS1, which is probably why there was no movements in this cutscene compared to the first one. But anything would have helped. Have a security guard outside or something, a dead one at least. You can't even really tell from the inside that there's supposed to be people sitting here at all. Me not paying attention to the cinematic made me think this human was a corpse or something. It wasn't until I replayed the game twice that I realized what was going on. Like, oh shit, this is supposed to be a concert. There's people here. And yeah, this problem of shit being too quiet is persistent throughout the game. Like yes, the game does establish that wherever we go, it makes sense for humans not to be there because they will get set on fire otherwise. So they're either dead or evacuated. So that is actually an insanely good excuse for my complaint. It's supposed to be that way. But the first part of the game is supposed to be a city. I just feel like not seeing people around or hearing them ruined the city atmosphere. This is supposed to take place in New York City after all. It does help with creating this weird eerie atmosphere, yes, but that vibe is not supposed to be here yet. It just fails to sell me that this game takes place in a city, which is really sucky. Considering how cinematic this game tries to be, you'd think they would try a bit harder to sell me on their setting. Again, yes, like 80% of the game takes place in a evacuated New York City. So no people makes sense. The problem is that pre-evacuation New York is no different from post-evacuation New York. At least give us a scene or area where there's people around to be like, oh this city is so lively. Would be really weird to see them all gone because of an alien terrorist. Shit, anything would have been nice. Just spam the shit out of that one-use clown model in a street. Anything to let us know that this city is inhabited by Homo sapiens. The contrast is just not there to justify why it's so lonely. It just doesn't feel like the city was evacuated. It just feels lonely because of PS1 limitations. But it just kinda sucks to me that all they had to do was give us a single area with people or anything. And then the eeriness of seeing that area empty the next time around after Eve does a bunch of shit would actually establish the atmosphere better and more fittingly. It just feels to me like the game is telling me it's a PS1 game, that's why there's no people in the supposed to be populated city area. Sorry about that, I hope you understand. And yes, I completely understand, it really doesn't ruin the game. All I'm saying is that they are clearly going the extra mile here, and they could have really done with just one scene to give us contrast and make the emptiness feel justified. Delete the microwaving rat CGI cutscene and add voices or something, add ambient voices as well. But that's just me, a lot of people might not have this complaint at all. And to be fair, later we do see more CGI cutscenes with bigger scale and more people. And yes, they are evacuating and leaving the city, but then again, we see all these people, but then in the game we see no one even before the evacuation. I don't know, man, I like bitching. Anyways, we meet up with Eve and tells us to go after her, so we do, and we spot the little girl again. Next, we fight the first mini-boss of the game, some weird tentacle monster, and it can be pretty tough actually. Depth perception is your biggest enemy in fights. Sometimes it's hard to tell which direction or how far from a projectile you are, and they do a lot of damage. And after the worm dies, we find Eve again, and she tells us to hop on the cart, and then she sets the horse on fire to get it running. And holy shit, that fight is so fucking metal. Fighting a SCP on top of a cart pulled by a flaming horse? This fight is easy though, but it's basically just a conversation. Hey, how come you aren't my team? You're like me, cause I'm human. And Eve then tells us that we should join the Maitokuchis, but Aya refuses. Then we get this cutscene with the flaming horse, and then Dada, that thing survived. Oh, and the mom died. probably turned into that goop from earlier. Back at the office, the boss says that casualties are high and that most people are luckily out of the city for Christmas. Oh, I guess all my complaints are rendered obsolete because of this single line. I take everything back, never mind guys. The boss guy doesn't want to involve the army even after a complete massacre by an alien. So now they want to evacuate the city. The kid goes and plays with a canine unit. Imagine the dog starts mauling him. Couldn't be. It's not a pit bull. And watch this police officer stop a taxi cab at full speed with the force or with his wood. The Japanese man the boss was talking to on the phone appears. Oh yeah, this guy called the office before, yeah. And he decided to go and visit O Block or something. Look at this place. And he's trying to talk to some police officers, but they don't speak Japanese. They don't speak the great language of Nihon. One of the cops asks him if he's Chinese, and then he starts speaking in Japanese. And then the other cop starts going absolute fucking insane style racist mode and condemns the Nihonjin for not speaking English. And then he gets fucking smited by the PC gods of racism. After that guy dies for being racist, Aya gets a hospital flashback again and then wakes up in the Japanese guy's apartment. Like, what? This part doesn't make sense. Aya crashed in like the side of a street or something near Central Park. This shit is nowhere near Central Park. Also, this guy has a whole ass flaming barrel inside his apartment. Like, what? He's burning his goon figurines and stuff because he's got a girl at home now. And of course, the only way that girl got there is by being asleep. Eventually, Daniel shows up and they basically recap what happened, but this time no one was set on fire. Instead, they did the blob monster thing. And Maeda, the Japanese guy, says that nothing like this ever happened in Japan, in the great nation of Nihon, referring to the novel. He does say that it wasn't anything as big as what's happening in this game, but I argue that Novel Eve is a whole ass different villain. But that's for later. Anyways, Maeda basically recaps the story of the novel, and that's for now. A scientist named Toshiaki, obsessed with the mitochondria, married to Kiyomi, someone who was basically being controlled by Eve, and at the very beginning of the book, she gets in a car crash and is pronounced in a vegetable state. So they chose to pull the plug, but then they realized that not long before the accident, she had signed papers to donate her kidneys, which seemed very odd for her. Almost like it was planned. So this weird obsession for the mitochondria and Eve's presence in his wife's liver makes him want to get the liver of his wife. He thinks it's Kiyomi or something. He thinks he feels her presence there. A doctor named Yoshizumi is a really desperate doctor that really wanted to make up for a failed transplant on a little girl named Mariko. So even though at first Toshiaki didn't want to go through with removing the kidneys, he says yes if Yoshizumi gets the liver from his wife as well. And he basically cultivated the cells, which was Eve. He does that thinking that somehow that's keeping Kiyomi alive. It's never made clear, at least to me, if he actually expects to see his wife come from those cells. But I mean, it did happen, so congrats to him. Eventually from those cells, Eve manages to grow out of it. Like, she started as a blob and slowly sculptured herself into Kiyomi. She used like the fucking sculpt brush from Blender. That shit is so hard to use, bro. I tried to get into Blender, that shit was impossible. Anyways, Eve's plan was to get sperm from Toshiaki so that she could make the ultimate being by getting pregnant. And that's exactly what Eve is trying to do in the game. To give birth to the ultimate being. She is trying to get pregnant, which means sex! Anyways, Aya is attention seeking again, and she's all like, oh my god, I'm a monster. I don't want to hurt you. Then she mentions a girl named Maya, and that's it. Maya is her sister, and she died alongside her mom in a car crash. I don't know how I missed that. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, the game always goes into these long rants of dialogue and cutscenes, so sorry about that. And also that I'm doing this exact same thing, and I'm really sorry about that. I really like video games and stuff. Anyways, the next day we get to explore around this whole street for some reason. Really, this is a weird section, because we get to go around like 2 different stores, a gun store and a clinic, just to loot around and stuff. It's cool, but like, it's basically the game saying, here, take free shit. Also, look at what Daniel does here. They weren't kidding when they said they sell guns in America. Yeah, well, you should hear what they say about cops in America, because you're about to witness some improper gun handling from a cop. Out the way, Aya. Daniel, no. The fuck is wrong with you? Also, did she just dodge a bullet? That was a slow ass bullet, or Aya is incredibly fast. Also, the sound was way faster than the bullet. Maybe CS and Bilu were onto something.
Huh?
Sound, bro.
Sound?
The sound, bro.
Cause I could hear my voice getting there before the light even hit that motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Like.
But the way this UI for the menu is nice and all, but it really sucks in the weirdest ways. First of all, it's really hard to see. In some sections of the game, it gets really dark. And it also sucks that in the inventory screen, every item but weapons and armor, I think, is obscured. So it makes it way harder to see. It should be the other way around. All items highlighted. Well, not highlighted, but just like, just fucking lighted. Anyways, after all that, you get another long-ass cutscene. Maeda explains that the mitochondria and the nucleus help each other, but Eve managed to reverse this, and then Aya gives a sample to be tested on. And as it turns out, her mitokuchi supplies a lot of energy to the nuclei of her cells. Oh my god, I'm so fucking tired of saying mitokuchi. I mean mitochondria. God, I'm overthinking it now. Then he brings up the selfish gene theory, that genes act in a manner to ensure survival of the species. Basically, Eve is trying to destroy all mitochondria, except her own, of course. So because of that, Aya's mitochondria became powerful. So what this all means is that, oh damn, Dr. Clamper. God, that sounds like a slur. Oh, Clanker. Dr. Clanker. Dr. Clamper gets real mad with them. But then Daniel sees the name of his ex-wife and his kid on the list. Look how he just walks in and turns that shit off in front of him. Like, nope, you did not see that. What a fucking Sigma. It's like, no, bad boy. So then Daniel goes berserk because he did in fact see that. Daniel lets him go, powering up or something. Look at him clenching his fist. You can feel the fucking rage urging through his D. If the game had voice acting, I imagine he make this sound. Oh wait, no. What the fuck does this mean? What the fuck did I write here? Okay, that's not gonna work. And then they leave and Maeda says, "Arigato gozaimasu, Clampu-sama." Now we go back to the office and we get to stare at the back of Maeda's head. This is absolute peak fucking cinema. Back at the office, it has been overrun by enemies, and then Maeda gives us a good luck charm, his little cunty charm. And we constantly get these throughout the game from him. Anyways, we go down to find Wayne helping Torres, who is down on the floor, and then Torres is all like, guess I screwed up. Why didn't you just shoot? Haven't used guns since. Since your daughter was shot? They did not need to kill this man's daughter. What the fuck, Debs? You can't blame guns for that. I suppose you're right. Guess I've been a foolish cop all this time. Take care. And then he dies. But we get his gun, which is fucking useless. I don't like it, so whatever. Apparently a gun accidentally went off and sent his daughter back to the lobby. Noob. Guys, he got trolled. That's what happened. The Dips trolled him. His daughter dies and get trolled. And because his daughter died to a gun, he doesn't use guns anymore. I know I'm cracking a few jokesters here and there about this, but I actually really enjoyed this little section. We see this guy once and he's very protective over guns. And then he dies and gives us an explanation. It's just a small way of making this world feel alive. Apparently it was the dog that was going around attacking everybody after he transformed into a monster or something. So I hope he did indeed maul that kid. The piece of shit kid is still alive, and the kid is also going after it. And eventually we go up to the very top of the station, but before that I gotta talk about the bullshit enemy encounters, cause god, they're so annoying. Especially this section in particular. Enemies can still hurt you even if you just run into them, which I feel is kinda sucks. I don't know. It just feels like it would be better if you could run into them without getting hurt. That way I could do some crazy caught zombies maneuvers and shit. Having an actual hitbox of damage around the enemies at all times limits where you can go, which I guess works too, but I don't know. But this area will put you in the tightest of spots with some really annoying enemies, with very little room to move around. And it's the spider enemies too. They do a web attack that has to be the most annoying move in the game. Basically stuns you for like a good 10 seconds, which during that time you can get hit multiple times. So yeah, I feel this part specifically is full of these areas. Anyways, there's this mini boss right before the main boss, and this is the enemy that killed Torres, and he's pretty easy to take down. So I don't know how he died, he's a big pussy. But yeah, at the very top we get a cool CGI K9 unit transforming, and yeah, and now I think it's a fine moment to bring up the PE abilities. You might have seen my character do a weird magic move, and yeah, that's exactly what it is. These abilities are basically just magic. But in-game lore, it's the mitochondria releasing a shit ton of power and stuff. So it's a really cool way of including magic and making it sci-fi. You get a lot of abilities, but some are repeats but stronger, like Heal 2. Heal 3. There's also buffs you can apply to yourself, like your action points recharging faster, which is probably the most useful one, and one that makes you faster so you can dodge better. And then there's one that I absolutely hate that it exists, the barrier. Throughout the game, some enemies, mostly bosses, will have an AoE attack that is unavoidable. You cannot dodge it, you cannot escape from it. So what you have to do is use barrier. So it forces you to have some PE so you can spend it on barrier. And what barrier does, it gives you invisibility for like 1 or 2 hits. I hate that this exists because it just makes the game annoying. Because this existing means that this move has to exist. And it might be because PE is low-key really overpowered. You can heal a lot with this mid-fight and even before fighting. Yeah, if you're low on health, you can just pause the game and heal with PE. You don't even have to use healing items. In fact, you can save healing items just by using your PE instead. There's a few more abilities, but there's only 2 which inflict any sort of damage. One is just a huge ass beam, which does a lot of damage. And the other one, I'll save for later. But yeah, you get these abilities by leveling up, which means you kinda just get them as you play and reach different parts of the story. So I guess for barrier, this is supposed to drain your PE mid-combat, so you had to be careful for your next few moves. But I mean, it sucks even at that. I don't like it. And yeah, this guy does a lot of unavoidable attacks. This is one of the few bosses that has multiple targets on them, which doesn't really change much. It just means that there's probably one you need to target first. But anyways, after you defeat it, we get some lore on the story behind Daniel and the boss. Apparently they were cock buddies at some point, and they have respect for each other. Again, this is actually really nice. All the characters are really likable. They don't have much screen time, but they made it so anything they say is agreeable, or at least interesting to hear. By the way, his name is Ben. I don't know, he kinda looks like a Brandon to me. Oh yeah, day 3 started when she woke up in the trap house. Turns out this attack at the police station was a distraction. Dun dun dun! Eve is actually at the sperm bank.
Quagmire went to the bank to donate sperm.
Of course. She's gonna eat all the sperm because again, she's trying to get pregnant. All I'm saying is that I could not beat the protagonist of this game. On the car ride to the hospital, Maeda is acting all weird, and he does this throughout the game. It's kinda implied he likes Aya, but like, why is this important? I guess it adds to his awkward character. Look, he even scratches his head like an anime character. Aya asks about the ending of the novel, and so Maeda spoils it for her. Maeda gives Aya another charm thing, and so we go in the hospital trying to stop Eve from eating all the sperm or whatever. I don't know how pregnancy works. I ditched sex ed. No, that's actually true. I did in fact ditch sex ed. I think Fallout 4 was out at the time. Nothing really crazy happens. You go in, Eve traps you in the basement, you make it out, and you turn off the sperm machine or something where they make sperm. All I'm saying is Book Eve would have no problem finding an alternative, if you know what I mean. Also, I don't get why the nurses are still alive. I thought there was a fire barrier or something, but I don't know. Especially because Maeda tried walking in, but he couldn't because of the firewall. But yeah, we go up to the elevator again to the top floor, and look at this shot of the Chrysler building. Is that how you say it? Chrysler? At the time I had no idea, but this was actually foreshadowing for post-game content. I got to this part that really pissed me off. I got lost here for a good hour, going up and down the hospital floors trying to figure out what to do. Turns out I have to push this furniture thing away from the wall. It even has a big red arrow next to it, and to me that's just annoying. Okay, looking back, it's pretty clearly an arrow, but when I played on my CRTV, it just looked like a random red blur. So I just thought it was random science scribble. Behind this area, we find a weird lab area where we find a bunch of samples on the floor, and we find a HLA list, which is apparently a list for finding donors for stem cell or organ transplants. And here is something interesting. The list also contains Aya's mother's name, Mariko Bruh. Oh yeah, Aya's last name is Bruh. That's cool, huh? It's Bruh. And her sister as well, Maya Bruh. Brea. It's Brea, no? Maya Brea. Well, Mariko is an interesting name because that's the name of the little girl who got a kidney transplant in the novel, and she gives birth to the ultimate being. So I don't know, it's an interesting choice of name, but as it turns out, according to the wiki that I used to see if I was remembering correctly, it couldn't be her because it would leave a plot hole and the timeline doesn't add up and stuff like that. It's probably just like a reference or something. Maya and Mariko were both dead, and they brought them to the hospital. And at the same time, Melissa was also brought to that same hospital, basically meaning that a transplant was performed. But yeah, that's all we get from this. So we finally make it to the roof, and a cutscene starts playing. The army is getting involved now, but they aren't willing to attack randomly just yet. The captain is actually smart and has morals. Yeah, I know, crazy. And then a cool as fuck jet cinematic plays. At the top we fight this huge spider boss, and it ends up killing me and wiping all my progress. Yes, that's right, you heard that right. I even caught it on camera. Look at me unable to accept it. I lost 6 hours of playtime. I shit you not, I bought the cheapest memory cards I found. Yeah, these were $1, no shit they would be faulty. So I just bought an actual real one for like $20. Oh, but I couldn't just wait so long for it to get here. I decided to use the other cheap memory card I had, the extra one. So I play my playthrough there again. I sure hope it doesn't come and bite me in the dick again. And oh wow, look, we're back. Eve says her sister failed and she won't. So I guess Book Eve is her sister. And she mentions she's even more powerful than her, which I mean, I guess. Okay, admittedly, that's actually pretty badass. But Book Eve though. I just saw like, no more. Eve is like, nah, I don't wanna. Incredible writing. Anyways, the jet from the guys she killed is flying straight into the hospital, so we gotta get off the roof. And here is one of the biggest mysteries to me in this game. So after a few replays of the game, I noticed this woman thing in the background. Well, apparently this woman thing is actually what we've just fought. When we finish here on the roof, she just falls through the floor. So I guess technically it makes sense, she didn't die from the fall, so she's still alive. But she never comes back or anything. Just seems kinda odd to keep her alive for this little scene if she isn't gonna even return. Anyways, Eve got away with the sample and then Daniel flames Maeda for being a little bitch right in front of Aya. Ouch. If I was Maeda, I'd reach for the wheel and steer that shit right off the bridge. Daniel learned from Warner, a guy at the office, that Melissa would go to the museum late at night occasionally, so that's our next goal. But then we find out Clamp, the very obvious bad guy, is a bad guy. He's gonna meet up with Eve or something, so we gotta stop them. And that's the end of day 4. So out of nowhere, for some reason, Chinatown opens up in the world map, even though there was no mention of it whatsoever. But that's the next area. And this area is actually really interesting, or at least it's a really interesting looking one. It's just like a 5-minute walk. I mean, it's cool, but it's over so fast. And not only that, they follow it up with a shitty sewer level. They went from, yeah, you like this? Fuck you. Go walk in some shit, marinate in some doo-doo. It's supposed to be a maze, but it's actually really easy to figure out, and most of the maze part is optional. It just hides items and stuff. But it has the most annoying enemy in the game, and it's 100% guaranteed spawn rate for it. It's these bat bitches. They yell at you, and literally make it so you can't shoot, and doing the yell attack is their main attack. So you will get back-to-back yelled at. Unable to kill them, that means you will be there for minutes if you don't dodge the yells. Which, by the way, the hitbox for the yell expands and very quickly. And not only that, you're in very tight corridors, it's a sewer. It's just super annoying, actual terrible enemy. Another cutscene pops up and the blob starts flushing down the sewer or something. After this, we enter the subway area and straight into a boss fight against this centipede thing. And this one is actually kind of bullshit. Admittedly, I didn't have a lot of trouble after playing it a few times, but holy shit, when it splits into 4, it's really hard. But yeah, it's a sort of tough fight, but I can see somebody figuring it out in like the first try. Not me though. After this, we exit onto a bridge and we pick up some keys. And now it's time for disc 2. Wow, I'm so hyped and excited right now. Anyways, this 2 is basically mostly all cutscenes and museum, so this one will actually be pretty fast. After the blob makes it to the city, we follow it back, and we decide to check out the museum. The museum, I think, is the longest section of the game, and the most complex area by far. There's elevators, hidden elevators, stairs, and hidden pathways. Here it gets interesting because you fight dinosaurs. Yeah, dinos, which is actually genius and another interesting way to use sci-fi elements. Basically, the museum has all these dinosaur bones on exhibit, and the bones preserve some of the DNA in them, and so Eve messes around with that shit and resurrects them. I just think that's so cool, that they actually use the sci-fi elements of Parasite Eve to their full potential, allowing us to fight interesting and unexpected enemies because of that. You even fight a trike and yes, a T-Rex, which if you watch my Dino Crisis video, which you definitely didn't, I was upset at not having a fight against the T-Rex, because come on, T-Rexes are badass. Also, I want to mention this real quick. I noticed while reading the book, in page 110, Toshiaki, the main character, mentions a few stuff that he enjoyed as a kid. Dinosaurs, zoos, and museums. I don't know, it's kinda odd, isn't it? That those are the exact places and enemies we fight in this game. Anyways, yeah, here we fight raptors, jumping midget dinosaur things, pterodactyls, and other enemies. And it's a pretty straightforward area, except when it isn't. Yeah, I got lost again here for like 2 hours. This one I got lost like really badly here. Later on I realized that it's actually a pretty straightforward path you need to take to complete this whole area. Anyways, we meet up with Maeda, who has been working on his gun or something. He gives us his gun, and which does like 0 damage. And he also mentions how there was Maya's blood on the fridge with the label Eve, and apparently it's made from liver cells, and Clamp has been culturing them for years, basically meaning he did the same shit as the protagonist of the book, except he has also been working on sperm, trying to remove the mitochondria from it, which in the book is actually the downfall of the ultimate being. The fact that the sperm they used for it had male mitokuchi cells in it, and those mitokuchi cells fought with the mitokuchi cells of the mom, and there was basically an internal war. So what Clamps is trying to do is avoid that mistake. Anyways, right after Clamps walks in and he's acting like he's a mitochondria himself or something, he's just non-stop glazing Eve about how she's the superior life form or some shit like that, bouncing on it non-stop. And then Clamps tries to do something to Aya, and then Daniel shows up and punches him in the side of the head. Also, I didn't even realize he was wearing sunglasses this whole time. Daniel wants all the smoke. He keeps punching people and shooting guns and stuff. He's so fucking cool. Then Clamp wakes up and explains us his evil plan. He wants the ultimate being to be born, and basically says what I said about the internal war thing with the UV. That's what I'm gonna call the ultimate being now, UV, because fuck saying that all the time. Eve is now pregnant in Melissa's body, and then Bro begs the almighty Eve to smite his ass. So he gets set on fire and dies. After that we fight a Trike and a T-Rex like I said. Both are actually pretty easy fights, but apparently not according to DSP.
Why am I doing no damage? Of course, multiple fucking hits, you cocksucker.
Eventually we get to see pregnant Eve. Alright, these gender reveals have gone too far. What even is that? A they or them? Apparently that blob is the people from Central Park. It's a massive kaiju now. Then we get an explanation on the whole situation. Maya and her mom were both donors, but the mom was useless, so they used Maya's kidney. Melissa got a kidney transplant from Maya, and Clamps was the one doing all the transplant and stuff. So in a strange way, Eve is actually Aya's sister Maya. But supposedly Eve wipes the save file from Maya and she obtained everything else. But technically Maya is the original Eve. And all those drugs Melissa was taking was so that the kidney wouldn't be rejected by her body. But because of the play, Melissa didn't want to skip it, so she took a bunch of those drugs so her body wouldn't give out on her. And that made her weak. So Eve took over, and that's kinda how this whole thing started. Anyways, the Navy sends out helicopters to attack the kaiju, but they fail again, obviously. They get swiped like flies. And again, they send out jets, but they just keep dying. Just keep throwing shit at it, see what gets through. The monster is basically a barrier to protect the UV as it's being born. Eventually a helicopter comes and picks them up from the city and brings them to the Navy ship to talk about it. And then they suggest Aya going and dropping a bomb on it, since she's the only one who can get close to it. And so she agrees. Everyone except Aya basically goes and dies. It almost feels like they wanted to die rather than accept that they might die. So Aya shoots the thing and it blows up. That was a really cool transition, huh? Truly the worst thing that has ever happened to New York. And here begins the last push. Aya jumps off the helicopter to confront Eve on a 1v1. So fucking cool. Anyways, Aya and Eve talks. They kind of just shit talk each other. And holy shit! Would you believe me if I told you there was a lore reason for all that get and the boobers? The lore reason is because I like women. No, but seriously, there is. Well, I'm not sure if it fits for the game because she's not trying to, do the deed with anybody, but she gets really good looking so she can find somebody to I mean, she's supposed to be like a perfect being. Eve then says that humans only made it so far because they have no natural enemies. Eve says that the mitochondria allow humans to live so that they can create an environment for them, and that humans were just being used so that the mitokuchi can keep living until it can be free again. Anyways, the time has come for the final battle, and it's honestly all over the place. I feel like you will either have a easy time or get absolutely melted. Let's talk about the last magic move you get. It's called Liberate. Get it, like liver? I wonder if that was a thing. Nah, that couldn't. It's releasing all your mitochondria power. In this form, you transform into this angel thing and start slapping around enemies. And you know, you get this way back in the museum, and I thought, holy shit, now I have a super powerful transformation to go up against the fucking sci-fi elder god. And I just thought this was hype as shit. See, in my head, this fight would have went a little like this. Close enough. After the epic fight, Eve calls Aya their natural enemy, and then she melts. And then Aya says something really interesting, that there must have been some other mitochondria that went under a different evolution from the ones that Eve's went through. That's interesting because it's such a simple thought that was overlooked by Eve, to think all mitochondria would evolve the same, or how Eve didn't think in the book that the male and female mitochondria would fight. It seems Eve is missing something. She's clearly smart, but then she overlooks stuff like that. I was gonna say simple stuff, but I don't think that's kind of simple, so yeah. Is it the god complex that she has that makes her overlook small details like that? We'll never know. And that's the end of day 5. We go back to the Navy ship to celebrate the successful annihilation of a woman. And then Aya questions why Eve would bring all that to the Statue of Liberty. Get it? Cause liberation? The free the mitochondria stuff? Cause I didn't realize until now. I just thought it was a cool set piece. We get to explore a little of the ship, which is pretty cool. We see a bunch of people too. And we even see the guy from the armory, Wayne, I think. I forgot his name. And he's actually important because he lets us name 2 things, a gun and a piece of armor. This is important because the gun and armor we name will be carried over to the new game plus. Everything in your inventory will be wiped. But weirdly enough, everything in your storage box won't, so it's kind of weird. Like, what's the point of wiping your inventory if you're just gonna skip the storage box? You can just put everything in there before you beat the game. All of a sudden, the boat shakes, and turns out Eve did manage to give birth, which means we didn't kill a pregnant woman, which is, I guess, good. The UV is alive. Duh. I mean, they were hyping this shit up. You think they wouldn't show it? That would be boring. Everybody but Aya flees. She's the only one that can fight. Now, this part in specific is really annoying and too convenient. So Maeda, you know, the scientist who has an explanation for everything, wants to give something to Aya. But Daniel is all like, quit all that voodoo shit. We have no time for this, Maeda. Please, Daniel. This is different. It's not that voodoo stuff. And everybody's like, nope, there's absolutely no time for you to stretch out your arm and open up your fist. Turns out he was about to give us the kill the ultimate being bullets, but oh no, there was just absolutely no time for him to give it to us or anything. Anyways, Stewie Griffin climbs up the ship and the fight starts, and it's a pretty easy fight, multiple phases and all. We basically see it grow up in phases, and it's really cool. Near the end of the fight, it becomes this weird krill thing, and immortal. We can't kill it with our weapon. And then Aya says probably her most powerful and interesting lines of the whole game. She kinda sympathizes with it. Says that she knows that it wants to live, but that she also wants to live. She understands that it's a kid. I mean, it was made with a real body and sperm. It might not look like it, but it's sorta human. It was born, not made. It came from a womb and has a mother. And to think that Aya picked up on all of that without really thinking about it is just really interesting. It's coming straight from the heart and instinct. Or I'm overthinking, I don't fucking know. Anyways, up in the sky, Daniel is all like, ah shit, there's no time. Yeah, too bad I couldn't give her the kill the ultimate being instant kill bullets. That would have been helpful, huh? Wait, what? And get what this absolute fucking legend does next. This motherfucker grabs the bullets, opens up the passenger door of the helicopter, and fucking jumps off with no parachute. He just jumps off and enters terminal velocity within seconds. He gets set on fire mid-skydive, and then he throws the bullets at Aya so she can catch them. Holy shit, that's so fucking metal. Top 10 hardest cutscenes of all time. Okay, now that the hype is over, This makes absolutely no sense. Okay, I don't know if I'm not grasping the concept correctly or what, but the whole Eve setting people on fire thing seems kind of to be inconsistently flawed. So the way it works, or at least the way I thought it works, is that the mitochondria can produce tons of energy, like actual energy, but our DNA has a built-in capacitor that tells the mitochondria to not go overboard, sort of like a line of code or something. Well, in theory, if a mutation on our DNA were to happen that removes that line of code, well, that's what the people getting set on fire is. All these cells getting set on fire. The problem is that it almost feels like, according to the book, movie, and game, that the only cells that have mitochondria are the skin cells, because whenever someone is set on fire by Eve, you'd think it'd be off the fucking cells of the body, so it would also be an internal fire. A lot of times characters manage to turn off the fires by putting a blanket over people. It's like it's a normal fire or something. And it's the same case with Daniel here. Bro was set on fire internally, not just outside. And the reason he survived the fire is because he jumped into the ocean. That's like getting internal bleeding and putting on a band-aid. Unless you mean to tell me that bro jumped into the ocean and started drinking the ocean. After that, we finally get to equip Maeda's gun. The one that did 0 damage, but now it does 999 damage. And the next part I found it to be super mega bullshit. So you get followed around by this slow shrimp thing, and if it catches you, it's game over. The problem is that if you die, you have to do the whole fucking fight all over again. And they are straight up just some dead ends inside this ship. So if you take them, it's just game over. You had no idea it was a dead end. But now you do, so don't take it next time, I guess. But yeah, he chases you down to like the GPU of the ship, and you overclock that shit, and then you open up like 6 Google Chrome tabs, and the ship explodes with it inside. After all that, our heroes meet up to see the sunrise. We learn from Maeda that Aya gets her powers from Maya because she's inside of her as well. That's so cute. So the real Parasite Eve was the friends we made along the way. No, but seriously, apparently they transplanted part of Maya into her. And I don't know, bro. At this point, they're transplanting livers like they're fucking Naruto eyes. And as it turns out, it actually is an eye that was transplanted into Aya. Aya had a messed up eye, and they transplanted a part of her sister's eye into her when she was little. And then Maeda says something really fucking cheesy and in your face. He basically goes, "Man, it's almost like humans are the real Parasite Eve all along, and Earth is the host." I just don't see how that line has anything to do with the story. Like what are you saying? Our heroes then watch the sun rise. So anime desu. After that, we go back to the opera, but then he calls out Maeda for being a little bitch and getting all nervous around Aya. And then they go sit down and Maeda is awkward and shit. He even pulls the, "I guess it's just you and me. Sorry for being awkward. What's wrong with you?" And then he's about to say something, and he gets cockblocked by the kid. Absolutely zero game from this guy. By the way, even the manual is kinda shitting on him. It literally puts "no bitches" in his character description. The opera starts, and this time no one gets set on fire. But then we get a small cutscene where everyone's eyes turn red, and we get 3D Maeda. I fucking hate this. And the credits are really cool too. A really nice Latin song plays. It's an odd choice of song, but it's really cool. But yeah, that was Parasite Eve's story. At the end of the credits, we get a shit ton of points to spend, and it's really satisfying hearing the points add up. It was a really fun game to play. When I first started playing, I didn't think I was getting myself into such a cinematic experience. It was fun going through this 100% blind. After finishing the game, I was on my way to make this video, like a month later. So I was like, I'm just gonna read the wiki real quick to remind myself of what happened instead of playing the game all over again. Because at that time I thought it was a long game. That's when I went down a massive rabbit hole. So I came across this EX game section in the wiki. That's the New Game Plus. And that's when I read about the Chrysler building. It's basically a massive New Game Plus dungeon. And there's a new ending for that. So I figured I might as well do it. So I did. I did not know what I was getting myself into. Okay, so I started up the game again, and this time EX game mode was available. So naturally I started off there, and this is when I realized that this game is not good for replays, even though it clearly was made to be replayed. You can't skip cinematics, you can't really skip dialogue, you can't skip anything. It makes it really annoying to replay, especially since some of these cutscenes go on for like 10 minutes. So having to replay those sections is just god awful. I don't even really have TikTok brain rot brain. It's just weird that they made this game with the intention of being replayed, yet they don't give you a skip button or anything, like really? Anyways, I got halfway through my second playthrough when all of a sudden, my save file started to wipe right in front of my eyes. That hurt. That was scary and it hurt. And I was so confused, I didn't know what to do, but I just kept on playing. And I even left my console on like the old times so I didn't have to start over. But the next morning I got to the dinosaur part of the game and they absolutely destroyed me. I legit wasn't doing enough damage and they were doing too much damage to me, meaning I fucked up somewhere. Also that me leaving the PS1 on meant nothing. So I decided that I first needed to do some research before I continue. Also just because I was waiting on my new memory card to arrive, and holy, there was a shit ton I did wrong. Number 1. So anytime you spend points on inventory space or faster action recharge, you're making a fool out of yourself. So the ideal playthrough would be you spending every single point on weapons or armor. And you gotta beat the game multiple times and keep putting points on whatever gun or armor you have. That's the only way you will keep getting stronger. Number 2. There are hidden weapons that are really powerful. This one also counts as number 3, but let's go over number 2 first. Basically, after I finished my first playthrough, I feel like I had a really good grasp on the weapons, what guns are bad, what guns are good, and I specifically remember thinking to myself, I'm gonna complain how there's no shotguns in the game. It kinda makes sense though, it would be too OP for a game like this. Well, as it turns out, there's exactly 2 hidden shotguns in the game. Only 2, and they're hidden. One in the sewer maze, and one is in the museum hidden behind a hidden door. So yeah, these are actually really good weapons, but I'll go over why they're more important than you think. And now for number 3. So throughout the whole game you will often get scrap or junk. I think it's called junk. You get it from enemies, chests, and other places, and turns out it's actually currency. And you need a lot of it. The only thing you'll ever see close to anything relating to the scrap being a form of currency is the discard junk option. Obviously you'd think it's just deletes trash from your inventory. Well, as it turns out, if you collect 300 junk, you get to choose between a few weapons that are really OP. These guns are the best ones in the game, and you can only get them by grinding junk. Basically, the game doesn't tell you a lot of stuff, or by the time you know them, you need to start over. So when my new memory card arrived, I just decided to start over, playthrough 1. This time I spent all my skill points in one weapon and one armor, cause my plan was to collect a shit ton of points so I can use them on a junk weapon once I get that. And after a few playthroughs of collecting points, like 2 or 3 playthroughs, I realized just how short the game actually is. It would take me like 2 sittings to beat the game. And also it was the fact that this too is more cinematics than gameplay. So after those playthroughs I decided I needed to start collecting perks from weapons and armors, because I was gonna put all the OP perks into one gun and one armor. So I decided to do some research on the internet, and I came across this Reddit post of a guy listing off the best gun and armor you can make. So I basically just followed that guide. I replayed the game, and this time I went around looking for specific chests that contained the guns I needed. For example, the shotguns that are really powerful by their own have the shotgun perk, and this is good because it's the only perk and way you can shoot multiple enemies at a time. It's a really good perk, which explains why the shotguns are so hidden. And the best armor you can get is the end suit thing in the museum, and it's really good because it has a bunch of perk spaces open, so you can make it really OP. But yeah, after collecting all these weapons, points, and armors, it was super satisfying putting them all together into a single armor and a single weapon. But first we need to talk about this massive discovery in grinding Parasite Eve. So this game is not grindy, so there really isn't a reason why you should be going back and forth trying to kill enemies to gain XP. You are always at a good level, and plus enemy spawns are mostly always scripted, meaning the amount of areas or chances of you getting into random encounters is actually really low. It's mostly just complementary to make the game feel less scripted. Once you get rid of those scripted encounters, that area is basically cleared. Well, this encounter system is what makes the grinding for junk so painful. Again, you need junk to buy the top tier hidden weapons, and you need 300 of them. In game, if you don't pay attention to junk, you'll probably discard like 8 or 10. It's completely likely you'll miss this feature. So that leaves you trying to find ways and areas that you can grind to get scrap. And get this is really important. The only place where you spend your scrap is here at the police station. It's like 3 loading screens just to get down here. And if you don't spend points on your inventory, which makes sense, you wouldn't since by this point you know it's a waste, you can only really carry around 15 to 20 pieces of scrap in your inventory. Let's say you can carry 20 though. You'd have to do this trip 15 times down to the armory to spend it. Which doesn't sound like a lot, right? That's 6 plus loading screens per trip. 3 to go in, 3 to get out, and then more to get wherever you're gonna go and to get out of that place as well. So you could be there for 20 minutes easily and barely even just get 10. Because remember, these enemies drop more than just junk. So the encounter rates are pretty low already. The chances of you getting scrap is low, which by the way, the highest amount of scrap you can get in an encounter is like 4. It is a pain grinding scrap. So much time for a single run. I wouldn't be surprised if people spend 40 minutes and just barely manage to get a single run of 20 scrap out of 300. The only thing that kinda helps you, if anything at all, is the baton. There are 3 levels to the club that you can find in chests, and they have a perk that allows you to steal from enemies, meaning you can steal scrap from them. But this is also flawed since you could get nothing from the enemies, or other items. So how did someone used to grind this back in the day? According to some of the posts I read before the huge discovery, people would actually spend 10 plus hours grinding this. Someone said it would actually take real life days to do since they didn't have enough time to do it in one day. So the previous farming method was found over a decade ago by Moruru. Basically at the Suge there would be a spawn of a monkey and 2 crows that people could farm by stealing from the crows using one of the clubs, and then you would escape the battle so the encounter doesn't change from 100 to 45%. So this would be the most efficient way of farming junk. But then this user in 2024 found a really cool and more accessible farming method. Basically in day 3 the police station gets attacked, and right up the stairs from the armory, there is a rectangle area of the map that 100% guarantees a spawn of a rat and 2 crows. This could vary, but it's a 100% guarantee encounter. Right over the discarding area, by the way. A single loading screen away, a small one too. And not only that, but you also get to obtain the better club at the gun store before you get here, with a higher chance of stealing. So now you have an upgraded stealing club and are literally a few steps away from the discard station. It's a huge improvement over the 8+ loading screens you'd have to do just to get one run. But even with this improvement, it can take 4 to 6 hours to get 300 young. I think it took me like 6 hours. Which, you know what? Considering people were saying it would take them days of their lives to grind, I'm more than grateful for this. Crazy this was just found a year ago. It's not perfect though. A few people were saying that it didn't work for them. They were dying to the new Game Plus Rat and Crow since they do get stronger. And at first that was the case for me too. But then I realized I had a perk in my gun that allowed me to get the first attack in a fight. And because of that, I was able to just shoot the rat and then switch to my club and farm. Anyways, yeah, I did it for 6 hours and bought the P90. And holy shit, it felt so satisfying putting all the points and perks into it. Look at this clip. I was gonna name it PP90, but I just accidentally named it P. And yeah, I did my super armor too. And now I was ready for the Chrysler Building Dungeon. After beating the game 4 times, which by the way, beating the game only makes the game a bit harder. It makes some specific enemies deal more damage, and bosses are harder. But to be honest, it's kinda hard to tell it even does that. And also, I wanna mention this weird optional dungeon called the Warehouse. I didn't even notice it was added to the map, there's no mention of it. It just spawns after like day 3 or 4. You go in there to kill a boss crab enemy.
So here's this giant enemy crab.
And get a missile launcher, which is pretty cool but kinda useless to me. It just feels really random, like a checkbox like, boom, now we can say we have side quests or like additional optional content. But yeah, down to the last dungeon of the game, which now that I think about it is another optional dungeon. But 2 is the least amount of optional dungeons you need before it becomes plural, so no, I'ma just say they have 1. So this Chrysler building is so fucking boring. Holy shit, I cut some C's while playing it. Let me run you through it. You start in floor 1 and you need to get to floor 70. Every 10 floors there's a boss fight and that's it. And the main gameplay is basically just you walking around in circles till you find the next set of stairs that lead you to the next floor. It's so incredibly boring, and the worst part of this is saving the game. You can only get down to save after every 10 floors. So if you're gonna start climbing the floors, you better be down to spend like a good 40 minutes or an hour doing 10 floors. Because you won't be able to save until you get to that checkpoint key at the next 10th floor. And even when you get to that 10th floor, you still need to go back to the previous floor to find the elevator so you can go back to the police station and save. There is no save station or elevator at the 10th floor. I shit you not, I would do 10 floors each day and I fell asleep mid-floors like 5 times. I just did them at night because it was just boring grind time. I mean, I would destroy everything with my P90 super shotgun. There was no challenge, it was just a maze. One time I fell asleep 2 floors before the 10th floor, and I was really contemplating just leaving the console on, because I was not gonna do 2 more floors and then have to go down and find the elevator just so I can go save. It just sounded like a 30-minute task to me. And the boss fights are kinda cool actually. I like them, but they're not hard either. I don't even remember what they were, I killed them that fast. But yeah, the last 10 floors are basically decoration. And at the very top we find Maya, the little girl who would occasionally spawn. Maya is here for real, in this weird flesh room. It almost feels like we're inside the belly of a furry. I'm happy to ruin your day. As it turns out, it's not really Maya. So I lied to you. And then, oh my god, more Naruto-ass transplants. I just lost track at this point. I don't know who's switching what with who. Basically, when Eve was given birth, she came over here to make a nest in case Eve failed, which she did. And even though that's Eve right now, it is Maya's body. And then Eve lets Maya speak. And Maya is having a breakdown because the car crash just happened to her. Anyways, Eve is back and then this is the final final fight. It's not very good. She has like 2 or 3 attacks, but she only really uses one. And honestly, it's a really easy fight. I mean, watch me destroy her with my P90. Suddenly, the fight stops and Aya's mitochondria starts speaking, and it's basically saying how Aya's mitochondria is now more evolved than Maya's. And before Eve takes over Aya's body, Maya stops her, cause Aya has Maya inside of her as well, because of the eye transplant thing. And it seems that Maya somehow ends Eve and herself at the same time. And Aya says, "My body is back. It's back to normal." Like before the game started. And then Aya finally gets some closure, basically realizing that she has always waited for Maya and her mom to come home, but Maya was already with her sister this whole time. So nice, so cute. The credits roll, and this time we get some cute pictures along the credits. And that's it. That's the game. The entire game. That last section was super underwhelming, god. It really wasn't worth it. They didn't even give us a cool CGI cutscene, even after they did it for literally everything else. That would have made it a bit worth it at least. But I don't know, man, I guess it was good closure for Aya. Aya overall is a good protagonist. She's a bit funny even if unintentional, has a decent backstory, and is overall just fun to play. She feels less charmful than Jill, of course, because she gets those whack-ass voice acted lines that are super fun to listen to. But I think Aya works in the sense that she doesn't really break your immersion. Even though she did do a few stupid things like tell the whole world it was aliens, she doesn't take you out of the game because she has no voice lines and also actually feels like a cop. She actually acts like one. And when she does something badass, it feels like she's doing it because she's a cop, not because she's the main protagonist. Even though it straight up does happen a few times, like when she was the only one able to drop the nuke on Eve, but her determination to do it feels believable. It doesn't feel like, oh, I'm the MC, of course I have to do it myself. No, it feels like she really sees it as her duty. And throughout the game, we've seen that sense of duty, so I think she's a well-crafted character, especially for PS1 standards, and especially where it matters. But yeah, that's the entire game, no more content. Overall, great experience with the game. Definitely not flawless, I won't lie. I don't see myself coming back to it anytime soon. Anyways, now I gotta talk about Eve, and with this I'll bring up the book and the movie because there is 3 very different Eves here. And you know, Eve is a really cool character. She deserves her own part in the video. So first, let's start off with Eve in the game. Eve is really interesting because the uncanniness of the character models and the lack of voice makes her feel like she is literally a living parasite cell. There's no emotion on her face, no voice or whimpers. It kinda gives off Skinwalker energy. And because she really doesn't show any human characteristics like voice or emotion, she really is just a parasitic cell. But seeing this uncanny humanoid thing trying to rule the world is scary. Of course, the Eve does talk in game as text, but this doesn't damage the aura Eve has. And there's something to enjoy about that, even if to some people it might feel shallow. But then there's Book Eve. If Eve in the game is the King Bond of Eves because she has a huge body count, then Eve in the book is the deity of the Eves because she has a body count. But seriously, even the book is so well done. She's basically only present for like 1/4 of the book at the end, but once you get to the end, you realize just how much she was fucking with people. So the book starts again with the car crash and the death of Kiyomi, but we constantly go to the past to when she was alive. We get her perspective way back from school, all the way until her death, all the decisions she took and didn't. So Eve has always been present to some level in Kiyomi's life, and it seems Eve managed to get the right person for her plans, because Kiyomi has no idea what future she wants for herself. She compares herself to others constantly, admiring them because they know what they want, and they chase it. But then Kiyomi meets Toshiaki in college, and she admires his passion for his research. Toshiaki has a clear goal to someday be published in Nature, a prestigious science section in a magazine, and of course to study the mitochondria and cells. And when Kiyomi hears all this, so does Eve. Eve hears Toshiaki talk about the mitochondria and at times even speaks for Kiyomi, and in a way she influenced Kiyomi's life decisions that got her to marry Toshiaki. And it was subtle enough at first where Kiyomi thought it was just her own feelings, because Kiyomi has never felt how being sure of yourself feels. But we knew Eve was pulling heartstrings and shit. Eventually she started to realize something was wrong with her, that there was someone else with her. She realized this when they were doing the deed, and all of a sudden Kiyomi started to backseat gaming as her body was being controlled by Eve. Slowly but surely, Eve even started to shape and mold Kiyomi's body so Toshiaki would find her more attractive. Eve would change basically everything about Kiyomi just so Toshiaki would like her more. Eventually Eve started to gain more control, and that's when she signed the transplant papers and later purposely crashed the car. But yeah, it's a really sad story. Kiyomi was unsure about what she wanted for her future, but then she was robbed of that decision by Eve. She doesn't even know that she didn't get to live her own life. Kiyomi had no free will, so her life was not even really hers. And it brings the question of whether or not she even really loved Toshiaki, or at least if she would have ended up with him. Toshiaki really loved Kiyomi, which is why he's doing all of what he can to preserve her. But did he love Kiyomi or did he love Eve? And this fact being questioned makes the entire book possibly being a lie. But seeing everyone involved being manipulated in one way or another by Eve, even though she isn't even really 100% present, is really fascinating. It makes Eve so intimidating and sinister. Imagine what she can do when she's actually in control. It's also because you don't realize she was pulling all the strings until the very end. This Eve is my favorite one of the three. She makes the book feel like it's all a story created by her. She has little presence for 3/4 of the book, but by the last quarter, she flips the whole book upside down. It's a crazy change of pace. The book has different ideas of what a future can be. For example, Mariko, the girl who gets a kidney transplant by Yoshizumi, she had previously had a kidney transplant with a kidney from her father, but she quit taking the medicine that Yoshizumi gave her because she got bullied in school and got called a freak about it. A Frankenstein monster. She wasted her father's kidney because she got bullied, and her father was already debating whether or not he should donate his kidney to his own child, which is something that I find really hard to relate to. Obviously, a kidney is something very important from you to just give away, and it would suck to even give it to someone you love. It's a bunch of complex emotions, and I like that they explored it a bit. But because Mariko messed up her dad's kidney, she feels guilty about it, and she never really opens up about it either. It doesn't even get a conclusion at the end or anything. She's forever gonna live guilty about that. And honestly, I can't blame her for not bringing it up. That's a massive fuck up. If her dad found out about it, one can only imagine what he would do, or more so what he would feel about it. Because even though he questioned it, he still did it because that's his daughter, and that hurt him not just physically but emotionally. So imagine if Mariko went and spit on his face about it. But yeah, Mariko messing it up and never telling anyone what really happened messed up Yoshizumi as well. Yoshizumi had a girlfriend or wife, I can't remember, and they promised they would have a kid later, but when the time arrived, they realized his sperm was faulty, so she leaves him. So now he has a sense of duty to provide a future for Mariko, because he failed to provide a future for his wife. That's why he agrees to Toshiaki's transplant idea. But yeah, everyone has a different future. Kiyomi didn't get to find and choose her own future and grow. Mariko's forever guilty, and Yoshizumi failed to provide a future. Toshiaki's future and goal was tempered with when he became obsessed with bringing back Eve to life. He managed to make it in the nature section, but he didn't even bat an eye to it. It meant nothing to him. He was robbed of the satisfaction of accomplishing his life goal by Eve. It's so incredible seeing how everything kinda comes together. How complex some of these characters get even if they might feel shallow. It's too bad it's kinda hard to recommend since it's a bunch of science talk a lot of the time, but I can 100% see why it became so successful. It uses sci-fi in an incredible way. You even kinda forget Eve isn't paranormal. So yes, I did enjoy my time with this piece of literature. I'd say it's a solid 7 out of 10. Pretty good. But now for the movie Eve, and just the movie in general. Look, I get how these go, the book is always better, and yeah, this is the case again. My main problem with the movie is that it feels like a monster movie, not a Parasite Eve movie. Let me explain. They skip out on basically all character development that made these characters anything more than basic. In the book, they're already pretty easy to look at them and see them as basic, but in the movie, they are just basic. Mariko in the book is often upset, screaming, crying, and getting in fights with everyone at the hospital. And at first we think it's because she has some sort of phobia with transplants, which she kinda does. She really doesn't like it when she hears her new kidney is coming from a dead person, as that would make her a real Frankenstein monster, like she felt when she got bullied for it. So anytime she would go off on people and be a dick to her dad and doctor, we would see her as an immature asshole. But it kinda made sense, she's a kid. But then we find out about her letting her dad's kidney go to waste. It turns everything upside down when we realize she's feeling extreme guilt. She really is an asshole, but now we understand why. She's a kid going through something extremely tough and dealing with a dilemma that she brought upon herself and doesn't know how to deal with. In the movie, none of those conflicts and crying scenes are present. Now she's just, girl fell in water. She needs transplant, by the way. She went from a character to just a plot device so that Eve can give birth, which she doesn't in the movie because they would not dare show that scene here. And yeah, Kiyomi is also underdeveloped. Kiyomi not having the backstory of her future and free will being robbed from her by Eve makes Eve less intimidating and sinister. Now she's just, oh my god, the beautiful wife that died. I must revive her cause my wife is hot. And Toshiaki here feels fucking insane. He's actually insane in this movie. I can't put my finger on it, but book Toshiaki felt more sane than movie Toshiaki did. In the movie, this guy is absolutely devastated by Kiyomi's passing. I mean, he did see that she had a whole ass battle ram through her head. So here it feels like all his actions are for the sake of reviving Kiyomi somehow, on some paranormal shit. But in the book, he feels more grounded. Like he knows he can keep her alive through science in a metaphorical sense, if anything. But yeah, the movie is more shallow and I get it. Yes, they have to do that to fit it in 2 hours. But the psychological aspects of the book are basically completely gone. Now it really is husband trying to revive wife, but she's a monster now. It gives it more of a cheesy romance horror feel. It's maybe because it came out in 1997. That it has that cheesy novel feel to it. 2 years after the book and a year later the game came out. Apparently the movie didn't do good commercially, which is surprising because the game did well. But I mean, it's probably because Square Enix did it. And even though the movie didn't do good, I see nothing but praise and nostalgia from fans online about it. By the way, the full movie is available on YouTube with subs if you want to watch it. But yeah, now I'm just gonna quickly talk about Eve in the movie and why she's the worst Eve. Yes, again, Kiyomi not having her backstory removes a lot from what made Eve scary. She's just not that scary because she's hot. Okay, now let's go over an example of why she fell off. Basically, one of the scientists, who's actually a prominent character named Asakura, comes to do science stuff in the lab where Eve's cells are at. But then she hears noises, the lights go off and there's rattling all over the place. And then Eve forms into a blob of cells and eventually a body. And so then she gets chased around in the lab in the dark. But then she busts her ankle open or something in the table. And then Eve fucking consumes her ass as she tries to crawl away on the floor littered with glass shards. But in the movie it's like, oh my god, rattling on a pipe. And then a piece of like cum falls on her ear. And scene is over. Just the fact that she didn't even try to run away makes Eve less scary. Also, Eve has consensual intercourse in the movie, not straight up. She will be the safe bet over the bear and the man. And that kinda also makes my statement about this movie having a more romantical approach truer. In here, he actually goes along with Eve being Kiyomi, not a monster. So they do the deed with both sides in agreement over it, as it should be. And then at the end of the movie, Eve doesn't give birth to the ultimate being. So similar to the end of the book where Toshiaki calls over the ultimate being by calling it his child and stuff like that. In the movie, he calls over Eve by saying, "You're my wife, I mean waifu." And then they die in a hug or something. So I can see the casual audience being like, oh my god, that's so sad, he loves his wife but it's a monster. But that's a completely different tone from the book. A lot of the missing pieces of the book were replaced with a more romantical direction in the movie. And because of that, it made Eve more of a tragedy than a villain. I still enjoy the movie, but I don't know, this Eve is basically just a waifu. And with that being said, I think that's all I have to say about the book, movie, and game. Try my hardest to say everything without really getting off topic, but that probably didn't work. Overall, it's an interesting set of media. The novel complements the game a lot. As far as I'm aware, I don't think there's an official sequel to the novel, but Parasite Eve the game does have 2 sequels, which at some point I know I will play, and I'm interested to see what they do with those sequels, because Parasite Eve 1 is not a perfect game. It has a lot of obvious stuff that you go, yeah, this is gonna be added or changed in the sequel. For example, a game about dodging projectiles and moving around, yet you can't fucking roll or just even run, you have to jog around. It feels like such a dumb thing to not include. There's just no way they didn't think of adding that. It's like having a racing game with no drift. There's little stuff like that all over the game that had easy and clear improvements that make you wonder why they didn't do it. But at the same time, this game was advertising on the cover that it's able to be played with joysticks, so it might just be because it's an old game. Still, I don't hear too much about this game, which is kinda weird considering how cool the game is. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Bye bye.